This band. I like this band. I wrote it down so I don't forget who they are. Oh, I remember. Fucking Slayer!
We're back. The Metal Horror Madman, Carcass John, back to school you on heavy metal, life, aliens, whatever you need to be schooled on. We know all, we see all. We've been to the future, we've been to the past, we've been to the present. And we're here today to talk about a serious matter that's on all of our minds. What if, hypothetically, me and Carcass, we love aliens. We love aliens. We live aliens. We wish they'd come down and talk to us now. They come down. They put us all in the cocoon, hence the movie. Nice shirt, beautiful shirt. They come down and they say, fellas, we're putting you all in the cocoon. You're going to be in this little pod. You're going to live there for the rest of your life. You'll never have another worry in your world. No money to worry about. No food to buy. Everything's taken care of in your life. But like anything, nothing's free. And nothing is free. Alice Cooper, great song. Nothing's free off the Last Temptation, great album. The trade-off is we only want to let you listen to 10 bands forever. Forever. And that may seem easy for everybody. Everybody would bang this out so quick. And me and John behind the scenes, we're talking about things here and there. We talked to Vinny Boom Bots. We owe him a few dollars, but that's a different issue. We were talking about there's certain things people are going to go and be like, it's got to be the hardest band. What about those, bands that are repetitive? Bands that we love, or the scene is so repetitive, right? Certain genres, no matter how great the bands are, a lot of the music sounds the same. And that's not a dig. That's just the style of music it is. I'll start first because I can't shut up. I can't stop talking. I just yappity yap, don't talk back. I mean, we all know what the first one's going to be. It's going to be Slayer. I live for Slayer. I die for Slayer. Slayer's everything I know. It's got a diverse catalog. People will tell you every Slayer song sounds the same. Every Slayer album sounds the same. That's obnoxious. That's complete. God Hates Us All compared to Show No Mercy, right? Hell Awaits and Seasons in the... They're so... Their albums are really a lot different than any other album. So I choose them because it's something that comforts me, or would comfort me for the rest of my life. It's something that's diverse, and it's one of those bands where I happen to like every album, and I know some people don't like Diabolus. I know some people don't like Repentless. I love them, though. I love them. My all-time duo, even though they hate each other, Kerry King and Tom Araya, and they've always been that nucleus of Slayer for me. So my first one, John, I got to go with Slayer. I have to have them for the rest of my life.
Well, that's interesting because I really want to put them on my list. But if I'm only limited to 10, I'm looking at longevity. I'm looking at, Well, I tell you what, Black Sabbath is my top notch. Well, let me rephrase that. Ozric Tentacles is my first band.
Oh, they are. I know, guys. He's let me know. Don't you worry.
That sounds weird, but then immediately after them, I have to put Black Sabbath.
So would you put those two as the must?
Those two are must. I have my top 10 here, and I think that those two are tied for first.
And
because Black Sabbath they had such a wild influence, and I know we can talk about numbers and record sales and all that other crap. Popular doesn't mean good. Okay, let's get that right out there into the cyber realm. But Black Sabbath had such a massive influence, and it commercialized this heavier down-tuned music. And yes, there were other bands that were doing this proto-metal type stuff, but I think Black Sabbath, and if you look at their entire catalog, even their later stuff with different vocalists. I mean, obviously the Ronnie James Dio records are just mind blowing. But I'd say Black Sabbath, and then I've already mentioned Ozric Tentacles. I know that's a bizarre pick. They've put out 22 full length releases, multiple live things, multiple DVDs and videos. They're phenomenal, and they all sound a little different. And I think if I'm in the cocoon, I'm going to need something to kind of chill out a little bit.
Yep.
And they have that ability to rock you, chill you, and relax you. So those are my first two picks. But I can't argue with Slayer. I can't argue with them.
And I can't argue. And there's something to put in perspective immediately, guys. 20-something albums is going to mean a lot for the rest of the time. Because I have a band that that's only has a few albums, and that's going to cost me over time. That's definitely going to cost me. But I'll Sabbath 2 for me. I'll do my next 2. So I'll be up to 3. But Sabbath was something that came to mind just for use. The amount of content, even stuff I didn't like at first. I wasn't big on Technical Ecstasy. I wasn't big on Never Say Die. I love those albums now, and I think it's because I didn't hear them so much when I was younger, because they were the albums people left out. Black Sabbath, Born Again. I love that album. I love the Tony Martin era. I don't think there's anything in Sabbath if you put on I dislike. I never liked like Changes. It's not my vibe of a song. But if I'm talking for the rest of time, I know this song, I'll feel comfortable with it. And then there's 8,000 other bangers that they have that I'm gonna love. For me, another band that's been here I go. It sounds like every band I pick, by the way, is gonna be a band that everyone says every song, every album sounds the same. Motorhead for me, because that's another band that has a ton of albums. It's gritty. Lemmy was a lot more diverse than people think also, especially when you get into that 90s Motorhead with stuff, the Snakebite Love albums, Overnight Sensation, Bastards. He really changed that sound. That's when they really became a pure metal band. That's a metallic sounding band at the time. The early stuff is a lot more raw, a lot more hard rock and roll, a lot more punk. I look at the mid 80s stuff, Orgasmatron, and that era is just, there's like a dance beat to those songs. And there's a story behind that whole album and that rock and roll album. And then of course the early stuff with Fast Eddie. I think they have so much diversity. Everyone thinks it's like Ace of Spades and Iron Fist is every song, but stuff like, when he's singing, I'm a loser, like talk about a song like that coming from Lemmy, the vibe of that song, Iron Horse, right? There's a lot of diversity in that band. And he's someone that just means so much to me. That's where I got my attitude of screw you, don't mess with me. I do what I want. I talk how I want. Directly from Lemmy. That's where I got the giant war pig tattoo. I could see riding with Lemmy for eternity. And just also another thing is the memories a lot of those albums bring to me. So when you talk about like Sabbath or I say Slayer, like I can tell you where I was like when Dehumanizer came out. I remember being so hyped as a kid, like this is going to bring them back. And then that blew up like in a matter of, seconds. And it's a shame because if they just stayed with Dio to me, they would have had such a run as they got through the grunge and everything and just everything stabilized. But yeah, I got to go Motorhead.
Okay. Well, and once again, maybe they'll put our cocoons close to each other and then we can kind of bump the ball and say, hey, how about anyway. Yeah. But I can't argue with Motorhead because they have a huge catalog too, and I just absolutely love Lemmy and his whole attitude towards music. But let's see. Well, I have to get extreme. I got to have at least one really extreme band in the Cocoon, and I'm wearing the shirt by accident. But Blood Incantation to me, they can do no wrong. I don't care if they're ambient records. I don't care if they're full on brutal death metal. And plus they sing about aliens. So of course I'm going to get some goodwill with the aliens because I'm going to bring them, the book of space travel and all that stuff. And so in that same vein as Blood Incantation, maybe the Scorpions.
Great pick.
Scorpions have a huge catalog and they kind of were a tale of several bands because they went through the weird psych rock of the and jazz fusion era of the early days, and then they got it to be a legitimate commercial rock band, and then they kind of stumbled out of the gates, and then they got back on track. And what have they been doing it for 60 years?
Yeah,
and I can only name 2 really bad Saint Anger like records, and the rest of them I'm happy to have in the collection. Why not? So Blood Incantation and the Scorpions.
Great picks. And I'm going to do 2 where one doesn't have enough. I'll be paying for this, but I love the band Emperor. The Nightside, the first album is the ambience of my life. I used to sit in my room in my abusive household, just blasting that in the dark and just letting that, like, there's just a flow to that. I can't live without that album. That album is, and I love the few albums they have and the EPs and, all great stuff. What's going to cost me there's not a lot. There's definitely not a lot. The good thing is the songs are lengthy. I think I'm of him in that, like, kind of the aliens took over apocalypse type situation. And that's why I could see Blood Incantation working so great, to have that type of ambience in the background. And another one, a basic pick for me is Megadeth. I've loved almost everything Megadeth's ever done. We talked about Megadeth on the last episode of being underrated. And I think of a band that I just think of those albums, Rust in Peace, Alien. There we go, right there too. Countdown, and So Far So Good. So there's just so many classics, and there's only like one or two where people say they're just. But even over time, an album like Risk has Insomnia. It has Prince of Darkness. It has something I could grasp from it. I hate the Crush and all that Crush and whatever crap that was, but I'm sure I'd want to hear that. I'd want something to complain about, too, when I'm in this cocoon. I'd want to hear something where I could go, man, the guy that put out Rust, or they just had Cryptic Writing, such an underrated album. They put out this complete just bomb. And I don't know. For the most part, I think any Megadeth album you can vibe to. If you're a fan of them, you're going to like it, right? He's kept the speed. He's kept the Sick, the Dying, the newer one, and then now the newer one on top of that. I got to go with them. And I know the Emperor if you're picking this to, if we're going to be around in this cocoon, like I said, there's not, I do repeat that album. I could listen to that album every single day. So in my head, it's like just something I need.
Well, speaking of Emperor, I love Prometheus, the Discipline of Fire and Fire and Ice or Fire and Water.
Yeah.
That thing is a absolute ripper. So I'm really hoping and praying that we'll be neighbors. Okay, how about this? How about Led Zeppelin and Pink Floyd?
Yeah.
I mean, say what you will, and I know Robert Plant says, well, no, I'm a metal band. Yeah, well, guess what, pal? You're a heavy, crushing metal-like band. How about that? Right. And once again, that crossover of ambience and rock and roll, and even some, if you listen to Animals with Pink Floyd, you hear some of that jazz fusion being implemented in there. And as I look at my picks, and I didn't really do this prior to the show, but they all have an element that is a blend of other elements. You have jazz, you have ambience, you have rock, you have metal, you have thrash, and they all sort of blend together, even though they did it sort of organically without a plan. It's just kind of what happened. So, yeah, I'm gonna go with the Floyd and Led Zeppelin, because I just think that once again the catalogs are massive, the songs are epic. If you're looking at popularity, they're responsible between the two of them for about 600 million record sales,
right?
And huge concert type scenarios. So, got to go with them.
That's the great choices. And I mean, when I was growing up as a kid, Led Zeppelin, I considered them metal as a child of the 80s. I did. When I heard Immigrant Song, I mean, that's that song still today you put on and it just pounds. That song, you're ready to go punch a rabid Wolverine. You're ready to go climb up a tree, grab an electric line. Don't do that. I didn't say you should do it.
No,
I'm just saying you're ready to do it.
Well, and it's kind of a generational thing. I was talking to a younger friend of mine, a great tattoo artist here in town, Josh McGee at Aces Tattoo in Denton. So go hit him up if you can. But he said it's sort of a generational thing. As I'm much older than he is. He grew up
right.
I grew up listening to Zeppelin and to Floyd, and to Black Sabbath and Aerosmith and Deep Purple, and he grew up listening to Mad Season and Alice in Chains and Pantera and Slayer. And so he has a different perspective than I do, but he has an appreciation from whence it came, so to speak. So, but anyway, gotta agree with you on that.
Yeah, I mean, great bands, great heavy bands, and Pink Floyd's heavy in a different way. Pink Floyd's heavy in a whole nother cosmic,
in a cerebral way, kind of
cerebral way. You could say the words better than I can. And when you're talking about big, the two double D's, my favorite things about Metal Moms, double D's. And I was thinking two bands with D's, Duran Duran and Death. Duran Duran is my good time, fun time, party time band. I love every song that band's ever done. I put on Electric Barbarella. I'm sweeping around the house. I'm hungry like the wolf when I'm looking for you, Metal Mom. All this stuff's going on. And then to balance it, I think of Death, a band for me. And it's weird because there was a time when Death wasn't so recognized and so kind of popular, which not in the mainstream, but in the metal world now, where that every LP has 5 different versions, and they have every kind of merch you could imagine. But again, talking about generate, when I was younger, that was a really hard band. A lot of people didn't get and didn't understand. And as time moved on, they just became stronger and stronger. And for me, the top death metal band, it's just, I haven't seen one flaw. I didn't like, in all fairness, the Control Denied, but that wouldn't be coming with me. Chuck's other project, where he didn't do vocals, right? But I think of Death, and I think of, it's that death metal band where the album sounds so different. I mean, you listen to the debut and then you listen to Symbolic, and it's not even, and it's not the same band as it. The lineup changes, but he was able to keep, I love that technical aspect. To me, Death is like, if Megadeth, Rust in Peace, that album, that lineup, got into death metal, I think they would sound like Death. I think you'd have the speeds, the changes, and I gotta put them on there because it's just one of those bands that I just constantly go back to with all the great, and we know there's so many great bands, so many new death metal bands, but some of us guys from back in the day, we stick with our bands, and that's just one that Symbolic, when it came out, you youngsters out there don't know about this, where you'd wear out a cassette, where you'd wear the cassette out, and the thing would, you'd have to go buy a new one. You couldn't read on the cassette anymore, and then the tape would just go. I did that with Symbolic, and I still listen to that album on almost a daily basis. And Crystal Mountain, and then other people come at me and go, "Oh, that album's not hard enough." As long as I'm hard when I'm looking at their mom, that's what matters. And I like that album, so I gotta say, Death and Duran Duran. I know that sounds insane, but if you know me, you know me, everybody, and it makes sense to me. And I need that fun and hyper and excitement of Duran Duran. And then since I'm in that cocoon, not knowing John's the next cocoon over, but I'll never be able to talk to him. You're going to be a little depressed like that. You're going to need some of that death metal and black metal and all this crazy crap. So double D for me.
We're just going to have to crank the volume.
That's what we're going to do. We'll talk through songs.
I remember getting a memo from a record label that said that at one point, when the whole start of death metal was starting to be a thing, that Death the band was outselling every other band combined at the time.
I could see that.
They were highly influential, and I think that's a pick that I didn't even think about. So let's see. Let me look at my massive list here. Man, how about Deep Purple and Judas Priest?
It's, as we're sitting here talking, Priest is just banging in my head nonstop. And Deep Purple, especially, that's a great one because the diversity of that catalog. They've got 50 albums. They've got multiple lead singers. I think it's stuff like, to date myself, it was new to me, The Battle Rages On, when that album came out. I really loved that song. Ted the Mechanic of Perpendicular. That was the new Deep Purple, which is now probably 30 years old. Those albums, though, to think that's the same band, to start with like Hush, right? Like stuff from way back, and then the Machine Head and Fire. I'm a big Deep Purple fan, clearly. That's a great choice, man.
Well, and think about this too. They've transcended 50 or 60 years like the Scorpions, and they still have maintained the integrity of their music despite lineup changes. And I thought when Blackmore left, they were doomed. But, they've seemed, between Tommy Bolin and Steve Morris and whoever else, they've it still sounds like Deep Purple. The songs are good. And I can't think, even the album with the stupidest name, Bananas, is a good record. Right. It's not Saint Anger. It's not Risk. It's not any of those. It's still a good, solid Deep Purple record. It's not their best. It's not Machine Head, Fireball, or Who Do We Think We Are? However, It's not Saint Anger. So
it's true.
So yeah, I have to, and Priest, I'm telling you, are those guys getting any worse or any better? I think they're getting better with age. Mm-hmm. I think their lineup is solidified. I think they're solid. I think Richie Faulkner's a beast. I know everybody wants KK back in the band, but for a guy that didn't want to tour anymore and wants to just rest and whatever, why is he out touring with KK's Priest? I don't get it. But that's for another show. But I think Priest just gets better with age, and short of Turbo, and I'll do what you do. There's actually a couple of really good songs on that record,
There are.
and I can't just dismiss it as not part of their catalog because it was part of their catalog.
When I think of Priest, the only and I even liked Jugulator a lot. I thought if Halford was on Jugulator, that thing is a legendary album. The only one I don't like was the Demolition, was the follow up.
Yeah,
that was the only
I didn't like
Priest
it
album,
either.
right? They like tried to almost glam it up, or I don't know what they were thinking on that thing, but it was not good.
But the track "One on One," that is a headbanging mofo.
Yep.
Check it out. It may be the only good song on that record, but it wasn't a complete shutout
See, and that's the
on
thing.
Demolition. But you're right.
that's
I didn't like that either.
No, because they had that momentum. I mean, when he's screaming Jugulator or Bullet Train, that album was like, again, people don't even understand how crazy that was. We went from these two monster bands, Maiden and Priest, playing these arenas and just dominating metal to just nosediving without, which wasn't fair at all, right? You know, that it was
No.
a lot of things. It wasn't just because the singers; it was the scene. John, I remember being on like WPIX Long Island TV at night. It was like 1, 2 in the morning, and they'd start doing these commercials for Iron Maiden for the tour for the X Factor, because they went from, you know, arenas to like clubs, and all of a sudden you would see multi-platinum Grammy-nominated band. This was as if we didn't know who Iron Maiden was anymore, and they hit such a low that they were doing those telemarshal, whatever those things are called, and you're sitting there going like, I remember me and my friends being like, what is going on? And then, like I said, and then Priest drops Jugulator's a banger. And so many people just didn't care.
That's all you got to say about that record, Cathedral Spires.
Yeah, yeah.
But that and Ripper did nothing to tarnish the image.
Nothing.
He was, in fact, live Meltdown is probably the best live Priest, maybe even better than Made in Japan.
Right. Think of that.
Or Unleashed in the East. Sorry.
Hey, we're talking about both. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
The Encyclopedia Britannica over here of metal is going to get things confused once in a while. I've been waiting for it.
Well, and I was just talking about Deep Purple. So,
and Deep Purple again, real quick. Just the Coverdale era. Like, I remember buying Stormbringer back in the day and just being like, "This is the Burn." I got all that stuff on vinyl. Taste the Band, like all this stuff. Like, people got it. And then what was the one over time? One of the singers I'm not a huge fan of, who I feel like you put him in a band, you're an immediate, you know, AM radio elevator band, Joe Lynn Turner, Slaves and Masters. And I remember them, I think one of the guys was wearing this shirt in Wayne's World for that album. But over time, I don't mind that album. Like, I don't mind his stuff with Rainbow either. It's just that's that one where I was just like, oh, they kind of just lost all the balls of that album. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and every singer brings their own flavor. That's why it's such a catastrophe when the singer leaves.
Yeah.
I mean, think about Van Halen when Roth got fired or ceremoniously dismissed or asked to leave or he quit, whatever the story is. I mean, think about what kind of a compromising position that put the band in.
Right.
They were top of their game. Roth disappears, and honestly, I mean, Hagar joining the band, did it make them a better band? Yeah, probably did. Well, they sold more records during the Van Hagar era, but truth be known, Van Halen needed Sammy Hagar more than Sammy Hagar needed Van Halen, because Sammy was already highly successful, millionaire, selling tons of records, blah blah blah, but that's why that put that whole scenario into a bind. And then, you know, heaven help Gary Cherone, who tries to fill in at one point, and even that record wasn't as bad. But we haven't talked about Van Halen, so that's not on my list. But
we'll bring that in. We'll bring that into an
Right.
episode.
Yeah, reel that one good. In.
Yeah, and I think that we'll because I think we could do a whole episode on. You just gave me a great idea, my friend, as you always do. Singer changes, and the impact of the band and what we think about those bands afterwards. And you made a great point too, is so they get a new guy, it sells more, but over time, where do people usually respect, right? Like, you look back, I think we should have that as our next episode, my friend.
Okay. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
I got hot topics on that too.
Hot topics.
Hot sports opinions.
He'll be ready to go, and I'll be like, let me think. When I go my last two, I have two bands left. I'm gonna do one. I count his whole catalog, his solo band named after him, and his band and his solo project, Alice Cooper. One of the all-time greats to me. I love everything Alice Cooper, everything he's ever done. I think his catalog's the most diverse catalog of anybody ever. Another band, he was heavy metal in the 70s. A lot of people don't consider him metal now. I do. I think an album like Brutal Planet, Alone solidifies stuff like that. I can listen to everything he's ever done. Those first albums with the original band, Muscle of Love, all of it's great. There's no misses. I love Alice Cooper Goes to Hell. I love Last Temptation. I love From the Inside. I mean, these albums tell stories. I think that's very important if I'm locked in this cocoon. He has so many concept albums. Alice is a very diverse character in life in general. Started off with a lot of demons, started off with a lot of problems in his life, changed his life around, was dying of cirrhosis of the liver from drugs, from alcohol. Completely different person, somebody that you don't have to agree with all his beliefs and systems in that, but you can believe in someone that said, I'm going to change my life because I'd rather be around. So when you guys sometimes, to bring real quick sidestep here, is Madman's going through a lot right now with him and his son, and there's just a lot going on, and he's been very down and out. He's not able to do stuff that he likes to do. He can't sled down head first down the hill outside. He can't be holding that Slayer flag. There was winds like 50 miles an hour before he wanted to be out there in his muscle shirt and his shorts screaming. Life is just beating him up right now. Every way you can look at it. Everything is going wrong. And Madman says, okay, good, keep hitting me. Like the Rocky thing. It's not how many times you get hit. It's how you keep getting back up. And that's the truth of the matter. And I look at someone like Alice Cooper. I watched the movie Super Duper Alice Cooper. John, I don't know if you ever watched that documentary / right? And he's on the hospital bed with the cirrhosis during that era, the punk era, where he lost his look. He lost his audience. Albums weren't selling. He's getting dropped by Warner Bros. It's crazy. A guy that broke the Beatles records touring. And I start crying every time because I go, he had a choice after that. He had a choice. I was just at a show with people that, I see people that keep partying when they shouldn't be partying anymore. Okay, they keep pushing their bodies. They keep doing things to limits they shouldn't be doing. That's not my case with what's going on with me right now, but that could be my case. That could be my case if I decide to live life a certain way. And just because you get older, it doesn't mean that you're old, guys. It means you're wiser with things. It means you don't have to. You've already done it. You've been there with the 20-year-old pounding 55 PBRs. You've experimented. It doesn't make you any harder. Look at the Madman when I'm out. Madman is just as crazy doing stuff, not doing stuff. But my point is, you got to keep the hope. You got to keep the belief in yourself and life. Right now, there's a lot of stuff going on. People are fighting. People don't agree with stuff. Me and John talk about this all the time. We love communication. Just because you don't agree with somebody, you don't hate that person. You want to communicate and see both sides, because there's been stuff in my life I can't believe I believe now. There's a time I'd be like, don't even talk to me about it. It's because I got very open-minded with everything. I'm at one with everything and everybody. I don't want to hate anybody. I don't wish bad things on my enemies anymore. Will I protect people from bullies? Yes. Will I fight? Will I fight if someone's getting beat down? I always will. That's just who I am, but I'm not going to wish that hatred. And if you're struggling, I just wanted to bring it up real quick because this community is known for people that have lots of addictions, come from tough families, come from tough things of life. And you're looking at two guys right here that haven't had it easy with everything and different things that have gone on with us. And here we are just plugging right along, ready to dominate the airwaves, the metal podcast of the universe. We're ready to take everything over, and that's just what we're going to do. And when we take it over, you're going to read our lists, and they're going to be the handbook, the heavy metal handbook of the Madman and Carcass, world domination, unstoppable. And you don't understand, we're just getting started. And if you know what's going on with me right now, to get that out of me, I don't even know where that came from, I got to tell you, because it hasn't been good, but that's where I am, and I need one more band. I got to go. This is going to sound real. You want to sound here? We could talk this out real quick for me.
Okay.
Here's two bands. Let's talk it out. Two bands that People are going to think I'm nuts with even so. Iron Maiden, huge catalog. Half that catalog is undeniable. Other half that catalog is complete trash. You're never going to play those albums. And another band I love for their diversity and sounded so different over the years, Napalm Death. Napalm Death has a long career. They have a lot of albums. They even have an era in the 90s, guys, where they were playing alternative. Some of those albums in the 90s were, but he's screaming death metal with like alternative freaking songs in the back. So I'm thinking of two things. Do I want something as extreme as Napalm Death? Or do I want my Iron Maiden where I know every album to me up into the X Factor is perfection? I love No Prayer for the Dying. I love Fear of the Dark. People count those out. When it gets to Wicker Man, Future World, all that stuff, it starts getting very dicey. It gets very dicey. In the last couple albums, you will never see me. I haven't, maybe the last 4 albums, I haven't listened to a song from them since it came out, and I never will. And when I go to a live show and those songs come on, I just like, me and the rest of the audience just shut up.
Well, I can't argue with either one of those bands, except,
okay.
I mean, I love Napalm Death. They're one of my favorite extreme bands.
Yeah.
I've got to work closely with them, either being a runner or sound man, stage guy, whatever. They are an exceptional human beings. I really dig them. Barney Greenway is not only funny, but he's articulate and he's super smart. And I really, really like that band. And they've been around, despite the fact that not one of those guys is an original member. They've been together, that particular lineup minus Jesse Pintado, they've been together for a long, long, long time. So I would say go ahead and pick them. But then I'm thinking about Iron Maiden, and they're on my sort of list, like my consider these guys.
Yeah.
I just kind of for the same reason that you are saying I can't say Iron Maiden. So I'm going to say Iron Maiden because I would like to hear that coming through the walls. But,
I got, you know what? And as you're saying it to me, I got to go Iron Maiden. Same Napalm Death. I'm a huge fan of them. I think that's one of the most diverse extreme bands of all time. I think for a band with no original members, we usually, you sit there and those are the bands we all kind of clown and say that's insane. That makes no sense. But that's different with them. He made that his band over time. And but Iron Maiden, because as I'm saying this, the diversity of Iron Maiden, the Di'Anno era sounds nothing like the other. I mean, that is such a different band. You meet some of those OGs that will tell you they hate Dickinson. And I get it. They love Di'Anno.
I don't understand. I get it that they have their opinion. I don't understand why they would despise him. Because he was just different.
Well, I think that's the thing. I think it's those guys when Ozzy left Sabbath and they wouldn't give Dio, like I know a guy that just won't acknowledge the Dio stuff, and I'm like, you're losing, you could be losing their best freaking album out of this. Like, what are you talking about? And I think it's what we talk about. It's why me and John get along so good, because we're open-minded to things. So it would have been easy to throw. Now, that's why I can't wait to talk about Van Halen. Can't wait to do that episode as soon as possible, because I really want to get into that with the Hagar. But Maiden, Di'Anno, then you have the Dickinson era. And then people start saying, I know people that say Seventh Son. Here's the thing about metalheads. They start going crazy. They'll start cutting. What do you mean? No, Somewhere in Time is where they were done. Power Slave was the last great Maiden out. And you'll hear these things, and I go, I love everything. I love everything up until the X Factor. I do. I love everyone. I could listen to all those albums day and night. I get why people don't like some of them, the changes. I like the changes. Like when we talked about, I love Priest Turbo. It's how I met one of my best friends at a job. We started talking music. I don't even know where it came out of nowhere. I think we were going to make fun of it, and I started showing the points of how important that album was for growth and just the band adapting to the times and surviving, and then having Painkiller a couple albums late. Like, how could you deny a band like that? But I love I do really like X Factor. I don't love it. I do really like it. I do find a lot of good songs off that album. I mean, they got an ode to Falling Down with Michael Douglas. That's crazy. They, Sign of the Cross. All that stuff is great. I didn't like Virtual X at all, although I think I like one song off that album. But I thought that was a big miss. I was okay with Brave New World. People went ape shit for that because they started doing like whoas again. I'm not a big fan of that album. Over time, I like it more. I like the song Rainmaker. I like the reincarnation of Benjamin, whatever song that song, that 11-minute epic is unbelievable. Now, I don't listen to the whole album, that was the problem, because I feel Maiden started turning almost into a folk rock band, and got more into like, I don't know, Asia or Yes as the time where Priest is still using the metal riffs.
Yeah.
New Priest comes out, it's pure metal production. New Maiden comes out, it'll sound metal live. It'll sound metal live, but on the album, and I know people come at me for this, but those new albums, it's not made in a metal sense. Like the production's meant to tone everything down. So, but I go with Maiden. I think we have two really solid top tens.
Well, I got two more.
I forgot because I don't shut up.
Yeah,
Please.
I got two more, and one of them is a no brainer, and the other one I might be cheating the system.
Let's see what we got here.
So my number 9 is Grand Funk Railroad.
Really?
Huge catalog. It was one of the first records I ever bought. I bought the first time I ever paid my own money. I was 13 years old working at the base commissary in Alabama, and I had my first paycheck. I went and bought Black Sabbath, Paranoid, Grand Funk Shining On, right off the shelf.
Wow.
And so I ended up buying the Red album, and then On Time and a couple others, and they are near and dear to me because they are intricate players. When you're a true three-piece, they hadn't added Craig Frost on keyboards until later. But when you're a true three-piece, there's nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. You either do or you don't. And they were all quality players, so I really like them. Plus, their catalog is immense. All right, here's where I cheat the system. I love jazz fusion. Principally, I like stuff like Return to Forever. And Chick Corea, to me, was sitting he was there lighting the fuse of that powder keg. And one of the first things that got me into Chick Corea was I had an art teacher named Mike Stanner, who was also the coach, track coach. And we would have free draw Fridays. And he brought in a record player and said, you can bring in a record. We'll all vote on it. We'll play it. And then this week I'm starting. And he put on Chick Corea, Return to Forever, and Return to Forever, Light as a Feather. And I was hooked. And so his catalog is he's probably got 60 albums out there. And they're very diverse. They go from just piano improv to full-blown scorching jazz fusion. And with guys like Billy Cobham and Lenny White and Stanley Clark and Al Di Meola and Nate, just go on and on and on. So I want the Chick Corea catalog in my cocoon.
All right. Hey, I got Duran in there, man.
That could span 60 to 80 records. But wow. I figured longevity is key here because I don't know when the aliens are going to let us out. But hey, at least we have the alien support, and we're looking for metalhead support out there.
Need the metalhead support. And Grand Funk, it caught me off guard because it's one of those bands I know like 2 songs from. So a fan, someone that doesn't know deep things about this band, I didn't know they had enough material. I really didn't. I do find it interesting, too, that they were around with all those classic metal bands early on, and you watch the paths where people don't bring, and I don't know if the name hurt them a little bit. I don't know why they don't get thrown out there as much as other bands, but I guess that's something we'll have to talk about.
They outsold Shea Stadium faster than the Beatles back in the early 70s. They were a force to be reckoned with. I had the fortunate opportunity to be on the road with Pentagram last year, and we did 15 cities in 15 days. We went to Flint, Michigan, and I actually got to stand under on one of their album covers. They're standing underneath the Grand Trunk Railroad that someone changed the T to an F, and it's still there. And I've always held them near and dear to my heart. The thing about them is, you want to talk about a tale of two bands. They had sold 80 million records up until when they got off the tour for Phoenix, or one of the other ones after Phoenix, Survival, where they're all standing there. They look like cavemen on the cover. 80 million record sales, and they didn't have a penny to their name. The
Damn.
label and their management had taken every penny from them. They had to hawk their equipment in LA to get on a train to go back to Flint. And they didn't know what they were going to do. A guy named Frank Zappa, and I love Frank Zappa. He's an acquired taste, but he used to record every show that he did. And he got guys like Steve Vai started, guys like that when they were young kids. He let them play in the band and got them started. Anyway, fasting forward, he heard about Grand Funk's demise, and he said, "We need to record you a gold record so you can get back on track." See what I did there? Grand Funk Railroad, gold record, whatever.
Right on track, yeah.
So he says, "I have a friend of mine in town named Todd Rundgren that's going to produce the thing." So little be known, the Grand Funk We're an American Band, which you've probably heard the song We're an American Band, everybody has. And the album comes out and it's gold lame. And you open it up and they're in there with no clothes on, sitting on a bunch of bales of hay with American flags stuck in the hay in the bales. That's because they literally had nothing. And they were just showing that in an obvious kind of dig at that society in general. But because of that record, it springboarded them. And that was because of benevolence, man. Frank Zappa he wasn't into Grand Funk, but he was into his fellow musician. And he said, these guys need help. And all of a sudden, they're back on the map. So if you don't know anything about Grand Funk, do a deep dive because I think you'll really dig the vibe. They're great players. Their live stuff is incredible because they could actually play it live, which is another one of my... I'm a real stickler for that. I hear the albums and it's great, but if you can't do that live, then why bother? And so anyway, the long and the short, we both, as I knew we would, we both have a very diverse list. But I just hope we're neighbors, man.
Hey, that's what it's about, and that's what music's about. Listen to something. I always challenge people, go to a concert this year. I've been telling everybody, go to a show you wouldn't go to. Go see a band you say you just don't like. Go see them live. Because I had that happen to me with the Deftones. I still can't believe it. I went into that show with such an attitude problem, and I saw them live, and it was so heavy. I could not believe how brutally heavy they were live and how I feed off that. Does that surprise everybody? I feed off energy. I fed off that fan energy, and they're just bringing it. And it's crazy, man. It's been a blast as usual. The only podcast where we can debate, does Napalm Death get on the list? Grand Funk Railroad, all the bands that have stuff in common. Duran Duran, Blood Incantation. This just flowed perfectly. It flowed perfectly, and Frank Zappa, that's where Alice Cooper earned his bones. The first two Alice Cooper albums that were on Zappa's label, that's where a lot of Alice's weirdness came from as well. It's been a pleasure, John. I want to let everyone know where to find you, and we'll be back soon.
They can find me on Instagram at Carcass John Art, and you can look at some of my my artistic meanderings on there. I'm also on a internet radio station called 128 DB Rock. Download the free app. It's always free. And I do a show called The Crypt, which is the heaviest music that you'll experience on this planet, or maybe in an interstellar surrounding. And my boss, Lee Russell, there at 128 allows me to play whatever I want. So feel free to send me a DM and ask me to play a certain song, and I'll give you a shout out, and we'll do it. And I'm also on the Metal Roundtable every Tuesday night at 5 o'clock Central Standard Time. And it's like a bunch of guys sitting around at the burrito bar, having a burrito and a favorite beverage and talking about metal. So, and we've had Joe on there before too. And
I've been on there.
He's a wild man. We really love that.
I get wacky on there. I hope everyone was cool with it. I don't care if they're cool with it. As long as John's cool with it, that's all that matters. Because I'm out there all the time. You got to be yourself by yourself, as the madman says. You know where to find me everywhere. I'm dominating social media worldwide. Mr. Worldwide, that's what they call me when I walk around in public. You can find me in the backseat of your mom's car. You can find me with your girlfriend while you're at work. Oh, yeah. Or when she's at work. Sorry she was late again. Sorry she was late again. It smells like disappointment. It's been a pleasure. Madman in the Carcass, Metal Horror Madness, the premier name to find your metal, to find your Grand Funk, your Duran Duran deep cuts. You ain't going to find that anywhere else. Guys, it's been a pleasure. John, I'll see you soon, my